believe we journey through life with both these entities of awareness in us at all times. And so the exercise allows you to step out of your now and step into both the child and the wise sage. Welcome to my art studio. I'm going to jump right in. I was reading one of the comments last night by Susanna, and Susanna writes, I so badly need a challenge like this, but my low self-esteem and fear stops me every time. Susanna, babe, I just want to say thank you for posting this comment and for sharing that. It's not easy to honor these things that hold us back, but I think everybody who's watched this video, who's commented below, I for one absolutely have felt it. Like, fear is a major hindrance. It holds us back all the time. So I want to show you something. I want to share a little story with you, the prequel to the 365 challenge, and I would like to offer you some guidance on an exercise that you can try that might help shift things for you a little bit. So I did the 365 challenge in 2019, right? One painting a day for a whole year. It sounds very impressive, and it was cool. But what you don't see is what happened in the lead up to that challenge, right? To me doing that challenge. This little stack of paintings was the lead up to that challenge. These little paintings are what I produced, and they were all after I'd been on a holiday, or a friend of mine had been on a holiday, and they'd sent me these photographs. And I was so overcome by the beauty of that moment and of the holiday that in that moment I was able to overcome the feeling of the fear, and I was able to sit down and paint it, okay? The reason I did it is because somebody gave me some really strong advice and some tough love, and they said if I ever wanted to meet the maker inside of me, I would need to give myself to this every day. You don't have to give yourself to it every day for a year. You can start with 10 days or a month or 100 days. There's a lot of these other art challenges going around, but I get it because the fear is real. The fear is not something to diminish or put down or ignore. I think it was Elizabeth Gilbert. It's the most prominent place where I can remember learning about this modality. But she says, invite the fear along with you because it's real. It's part of your makeup, your DNA. You don't know yourself. Your ego doesn't know yourself in that landscape, right? So it tries to keep you safe. It tries to keep you back. The exercise I would love to offer you as a modality that you can unpack and explore is one that will allow you to recognize the child in you that is afraid, because we all have a child in us that is scared and often goes unacknowledged and unlistened to. And then the other part of you that this exercise allows you to meet is the wise elder. She lives in your future, and your fearful child comes from your past. And I believe we journey through life with both these entities of awareness in us at all times. And so the exercise allows you to step out of your now and step into both the child and the wise sage. The first part of the exercise is about giving shape and form to your fear, okay? Because fear is a dangerous thing, but only when it lives in the amorphous, intangible shadowlands in our mind. Once we can draw it out of that realm, sort of like sucking it out like a syringe, then we can inspect it for what it really is. So the first part of the exercise is to get out, and we're in an art studio, so this is arty advice. Get out some oil pastels or coloring in pencils or paint. Any medium that you can be a little bit more messy with, because I believe, especially pastels, they open us up to the child in us. They allow us to connect with the more uninhibited part of our soul. And then what I would recommend you do is get a large piece of paper, as big as you can. It can even just be like a piece of newspaper. This isn't something you're going to necessarily keep. And then sit on the floor. Okay, don't sit at a chair, at a table, in a studio setting that feels like it might come with its own resonances of anxiety and intimidation. I want you to just get a pillow, sit on the floor, put on some cool tunes, make some tea, get your pastels, your large sheet of paper, and write each of these fears out with an oil pastel. What this does is it not only gives name and form to your fears, but it gives color to it as well, right? So our minds are very visual. Once we can assign attributes to the fear, they become these slightly more knowable things. So for example, one of my fears was, I'm afraid of showing up to myself as an artist, because what if I don't live up to my expectations or the expectations of my father, who had really high standards? That was one of the fears I held. And writing this on a piece of paper in a tangerine orange, because it felt like a really bitter kind of bile tasting fear to me, put it out there in a space that I could view it outside of myself. Okay, so you write down as many of the fears that you have and as many colors as you want. Maybe one of them is, what if I want to be an artist and I give up on myself, and that feeling will be even worse than wanting to be an artist, and that feeling might feel like a deep blue. So it's a sad feeling, it's got a heaviness. So give it that permission. You don't have to draw an artwork, you're just writing the words down. Write down, afraid I won't live up to my own expectations, and write it in the color, and be all pastely and messy with it. That is the part of you that gives permission to the child, right, to come out and speak. Then what I want you to do is put that sheet of paper down on the ground and imagine any child that you may have come into contact with that is of the sort of 3, 4, 5 age group, right? In my case, it might have been like a little niece or a nephew or a kid that I used to babysit. You're trying to connect yourself to what it was like to look after somebody younger than you. And imagine that tiny, beautiful, innocent little soul is sharing with you this fear that they have, that they don't want to paint whatever, hot air balloons in the mountains because they're afraid it'll look stupid. What would you, in that moment, intuitively, whatever you say to them, and you can write this down, so you can write each question at the top of a page and then write your answers below that, or you can put a recorder on and speak it to them. But what happens here when you step out of the child role and you step into the wise elder is that the wisdom that needs to come through you to you is only something that you can know. Like, I can't give you this advice for your fears. I could give you some kind of advice, but it might not land as well as what you have to say to your fears. And this way of separating yourself from the little girl in you that has fear and low self-esteem, and the wise woman artist that I know you're going to become when you're 60, 70, 80, after many, many years of painting, this delicious, juicy, dripping in golden, ethereal wisdom that she's going to have, you can draw from that now. And so when this little child says these things, and you imagine comforting them and soothing their sorrows and welcoming their fear and sadness and saying to them, oh, sweetie pie, it's okay that you don't think that it's going to look like a cool hot air balloon. Maybe you'll invent a new kind of hot air balloon, or let's just feel what it feels like to play with colors in the clouds. Or if one of the fears that I held, for example, was that maybe my style that comes out when I paint is going to be stupid, like it won't look like real art or whatever it is. The sage in me said to her, but babe, what if you have a whole new awesome style that is uniquely yours that you haven't yet discovered because you're too afraid to sit down and paint? Wouldn't it be cool if we sat together and like discovered the style that you have, that only you have? And she's right. Of course she's right. Of course I would have a style that is uniquely mine. And of course I will only find that by sitting down to paint. But hearing it in your own voice, through your own brand of wisdom, to your own fear, is such a powerful exercise. I really, really hope you try it. I really hope it allows you to familiarize yourself with the flavor and the color of your fear, as well as this delicious sentient knowledge that you also carry inside of you, and finds an opportunity where you can bring the two together so that you can offer yourself the only kind of healing that you're able to access. So that's my guidance, that's my prompt and my challenge to you. I would love for you to try this challenge and write to me and tell me if you do. And I don't want you to forget that we've all been there. We've all been stuck in spaces of not producing, of judging ourselves too harshly, of like creating in tiny little drips and drabs over really large periods of our lives. I was there. This was me for 6 years before I did the 365 challenge. It's maybe you now, but it doesn't have to be you forever. So I'm sending you this advice with love and light from my crazy little messy studio all the way to you. Check you guys soon. In my hair. Show up for oneself. Did you see that? There was a fucking giant bug just flew into the frame. I'm not even gonna edit it out. Awful. I don't want to do this. Creatively, career-wise, words are hard.